Thank you guys for having me, for taking some time out of your day to let me come and talk to you. I'm happy to be here. This is actually my first time here. I just learned about your school recently, and you guys have a pretty cool learning environment. This is not what my school looked like. I actually was homeschooled growing up until my junior year of high school, and then I went to the public school in Pittsburgh, which is where I grew up. And I played sports growing up. I ran track and I played basketball in middle school and then in high school, and I also played volleyball and soccer in high school. So I've always been around sports and love sports. And if you guys are kind of young, I hope you know my brother, Jason Taylor, who played for the Dolphins for a long time. And so he was in football from the time that I was a baby. And I followed him throughout college. He went to University of Akron in Ohio. And he also grew up in Pittsburgh. And then got drafted by the Miami Dolphins in 1997. And I was 10. So I've spent a lot of time around professional sports in the background on the family side. So I got to learn, what it's like to be a player and to move around. He played for the Dolphins for a long time, but he also played for the Redskins in Washington, D.C. for a year. And he also played for the New York Jets for a year as well, but he finished his career with the Dolphins. And I actually went to school not too far from here at Barry University. I went to school for broadcasting. And I wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to get into. I kind of changed my major a few times. I went to school originally for psychology, and then I got out of that and got into journalism, and then I went to business, and then I went back to broadcasting. Luckily, I did that towards the beginning of my college career, so I wasn't in school forever. But I graduated from Barry, and Barry has a really good broadcasting department there. And it's really small, so you get to learn a lot from your professors and spend a lot of time around them. And one day I was in class, and they came in and started talking about the radio station at school there. And I'd always been interested in radio, but wasn't really sure, how it all worked and, if it was something for me. But I went down and signed up and started my own little show doing entertainment and playing music and learning how to run the board and learning how to talk on the air. And it was very low pressure because it was really just broadcast online and at the school there. So it gave me an opportunity to learn about it. And my junior and senior year in school, you have to do an internship. And there's a large variety of things you can do. You can work for a newspaper, you can do a radio station, you can do an internship at a television station. It just has to be an official broadcasting or journalism internship. So I did my first internship at QAM, 560 WQAM, which is a local sports station, and I started there on the morning show with Joe Rose, who still does the morning show there today. And I didn't really like it at first. I was young and I was in college, and morning shows were rough when you're in college and you have to balance working and class, but it was a good learning environment for me. When you start doing internships, you do all of the work that the hosts can't do. You do a lot of research, you do answering the phones, you run errands, you grab coffee. I was happy to do whatever they asked me to do because I wanted to learn. And really, internships are a way that you can get your foot in the business. So I wanted to, at the time, get into entertainment radio. So does anyone know who DJ Laz is? Yeah. So he, at the time, was at Power 96. He's at Hits 97.3 now, but he was at Power 96 for a very long time. And he's in the same building on the same floor. So I became friends with them, and when I finished my internship with Joe Rose, I then moved over and started doing an internship with DJ Laz, which was really where I learned the most about radio from him and his show. So I did, again, whatever they asked me to. I posted stuff on social media, I ran their website, I answered phone calls, I booked guests, did whatever they needed me to, and basically ended up working as their producer as an intern. Unfortunately, around the time that I was graduating from college, there was a big shift in the industry, and Clear Channel, which is now iHeartMedia, is a huge they're the biggest radio company in the country. And they did a big cut of their employees, and so that kind of had a ripple effect on the smaller broadcasting companies, and Beasley Broadcasting owned those stations at the time, so they did a hiring freeze. So my plan was to kind of get hired there, and that kind of got axed because of the situation with the whole industry. So I got out of the business for a few years, and then about 4 years ago started again part-time at WQAM, where I'd done my first internship. And because of the job that I had done at Power with DJ Laz and at QAM with Joe Rose, they gave me a job. And I started with Sid Rosenberg, who is now at 640, doing the morning show at 6:40 a.m. in Pompano. I believe they're based out of. And I started as a producer / on air, so I had a little on air role, but again, doing producer work, which is the same thing, but just you're responsible for it. You have to book guests, you have to post the podcasts, you have to make sure that the rundown's ready. You basically run the show. So I started there, and then he moved on, and a host by the name of Dan Cilio came in after him, and I worked for him. And then I had an opportunity to work as an executive producer for Hochman and Zaslow show, which is at the station that I'm at now, 790 The Ticket. And so I got the job there. So that was a big step up for me. It was part-time to full-time, and I worked there for about a year before Hochman moved on. And then I got the job as the co-host with Zaslow, and now have been doing the show with Zaslow for a little over 2 years now. So it's the Zaslow and Joy show on 790 The Ticket. And we are on Monday through Friday from 5:30 to 9 a.m. And so you guys can listen on the way in. And I also do some TV work too. I worked for CBS Sports last year, doing a lot of their interactive videos. If anyone here play fantasy football? A few of you. I hosted their fantasy football shows on Thursday night and Friday morning. And I also have a blog, Joy Taylor Talks, and yeah, so that's what I do. Does anybody have any questions? It affects it a lot. Sometimes it can be not negative, but sometimes people will imply that, I only have my job because of Jason, which to me, and you guys will learn as you move on in this business, that relationships are really the most valuable thing that you have besides your education. Education is first, and relationships is second. Everybody that you meet, be nice to, be helpful, do whatever they ask you to do, within reason, obviously, because you never know who you're going to be working with in the future. And so because of Jason, opening the door for me, because he has such a great reputation and has so many friends down here, it did help it, ease me into the industry. But you have to be able to do your job. Anybody can give you a job, but if you can't do it, I can hire you to paint my house, but if I come home and the house is a disaster, I'm going to fire you. I can't just keep letting you paint the house just because I like you, So it opens doors, but it definitely has also helped me, because being around him and through his career, I've learned so much and have sort of a different education on sports than a lot of people who haven't lived the lifestyle that he led and seen behind the curtain, I guess, of an athlete's world. So it's been helpful overall. Yeah, I think so. We didn't come from a very great place in town in Pittsburgh. I mean, my father worked overnights at the prison. It definitely changed a lot of things for our family. I definitely saw more of the country and saw different things that I wouldn't have been exposed to if Jason wasn't in the NFL. So yeah, I think my life would have been very different.
How many brothers and sisters are there?
There's 7 of us all together. So 4 girls, 5 girls, 2 boys. I lose count.
What was your biggest risk getting into the business?
Biggest risk? Well, it's not a business that you make a lot of money in for a long time. So it's a lot of people think that you see the business and it's very glamorous and you get to do a lot of cool things and meet a lot of cool people and go a lot of cool places, which is true. And you can certainly have an amazing career in the business, but you have to be prepared for the possibility that you're not going to get right out of school and get the job that you want right away. You have to be prepared to maybe have to work multiple jobs. When I first started with my first real job at QAM, I was working there during the day, and then I would work 6 nights a week bartending on top of it to balance everything out. So it's, it's not always as glamorous as you think it is in the beginning, but if you're willing to stick it out, you can really have a great career, a very rewarding career.
As a radio host, what elements do you think make a successful show?
I think that the chemistry that you have with the people that you work with is really important. You want to make sure that people that are listening to you understand what you're trying to do. So, I mean, like for my show, I really get along with my co-host and my producer, and we just try to have fun every morning. We don't really, it's not that we don't take what we do seriously, but we understand that people are driving to work in the morning. They're not tuning into us to hear a bunch of heavy, depressing stuff. We're not newsmen. We're just trying to have fun and get you to work and let you know what happened the night before, talk about what's going on in sports, and just have fun. So I think that establishing your identity is the most important thing. So that's also establishing, the personalities, who you are, what your role is in the show. It's all about balance. So I think having an identity and establishing that is the biggest part of having a successful show.
How far are you willing to take your career in the future?
As far as it will go. I mean, my ultimate goal would be like a Dan Le Batard type of personality. So television, radio, and writing. I think it's important in the industry to always be flexible, to be able to do new things, because it's like show business. Things can change and companies can be sold or shows can be canceled, and you have to be able to bounce back and be open to doing different things and have multiple talents. So that's my ultimate goal, to keep working towards that and just continue to get better.
What was the biggest obstacle in your career?
I don't like to say that being a girl is an obstacle, because I like to consider it to be an advantage. But it's a very male-oriented business, so you have to be really prepared and really educated if you are a woman in the sports broadcasting industry specifically. It's getting a lot better, but when I first started in the business, there weren't really a lot of girls in radio, in sports radio specifically. And the ones that had come before, really, they kind of had niche type of shows. They weren't really considered to be hosts for a long term, and there's not as many in the industry as there are now. So I think that being a woman is an obstacle, but it can also really be an advantage if you position yourself in the right way.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to get into the industry?
I give everyone the same advice, and that is obviously finish school and get your degree, because that is the first thing that people look for, is to see if you've finished school and that you're capable of learning whatever they want to teach you, and that you're disciplined. And another big thing, which may take a little time, is to figure out what you want to do. Do you want to be a reporter? Do you want to be an anchor? Do you want to be a writer? Do you want to be a talk show host? Do you want to be a photographer? Do you want to work in producing? Like, what is the job that you want? And it may change, and that's fine, but it's very helpful when you are trying to become successful to have a goal. Because you may say, I want to work in sports broadcasting. Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a host? I don't know if I want to be a host. Well, how can you know what type of internship that you want to do? That's why it's good that you do a lot of different things when you are the age that you are now, and you try a lot of different things and see what it is that you like. It's really difficult in life to become successful if you don't know what you want to be successful at. So I think that's one of the first steps.
So let me ask you, have you ever had in the amount of interviews that you've done, ever had a fangirl moment?
A what?
Fangirl?
Fangirl? Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I love Carissa Thompson. We've had her on the show a couple times. She's great. Let's see, who else? Giancarlo Stanton was awesome. I love Giancarlo Stanton. There's definitely times when we had Katie Seagal, which I don't know how many people in here know who she is, but she's an actress. And we had Amelia Clark from Game of Thrones on. So there's, you get to talk to a lot of cool people in the business, and there's definitely times when I'm just like, look, I know I'm supposed to be professional, but I think you're awesome. So but it definitely happens. It's okay. People take it well most of the time.
Who's your biggest influence in getting
Howard Stern. Howard Stern is the god of radio, and he's not really a sports guy. He does talk about sports from time to time, but he is the ultimate interviewer. Like, he is just amazing at talking to someone and getting them to say things and they would never say. And Dan Le Batard is also very good at that too. But the big thing about radio to me is making people feel like they're part of your conversation. They're not in the room with you, they're in their car, they're stuck in traffic, but they feel like they're listening to you and they're listening to their friends talk. And they're driving and you're like, oh my God, we were just talking about that yesterday, I can't believe that. And that's how his show is to me, and he obviously is extremely successful, so it's a big part of the motivation as well.
Was sports broadcasting your first choice?
No, actually, I thought for a long time that I wanted to do music broadcasting, do a show similar to DJ Laz's, but sports was always my first love. And while we do talk a lot of entertainment and movies and TV and current affairs or whatever on the show, because it's not really a hardcore sports show like they were 10 years ago. That was my first choice, but I get to do both of that now because we have such a hybrid type of show.
If you weren't doing radio, what would you be doing now?
I don't know. I've done a lot of different things. I actually worked as an artist for a few years, and then I kind of got away from that. I've worked in nonprofits. I've worked in offices, but I think I'm happiest working in broadcasting. Not necessarily just radio. If I got out of radio, I would work to be in television or be in writing. But this is what doesn't feel like work to me. So that's why I do it. It's interesting. It's a balance. It's not as hard as you would think it is. If you're somebody who acts professional and doesn't take yourself too seriously or take everything that goes on too seriously, you can survive. I would say that working in a TV station and working in a radio station, the radio station's a little more roughneck of an environment than TV. But there's a lot of industries that are male dominated still. So it's not specific just to sports broadcasting, even though most of the sports that we follow are played professionally by men. We don't follow the WNBA the way that we follow the NBA, and there's no women's football. Nobody's following softball the way that they're following the MLB. So there's a male presence that is much stronger than women. So there's still an idea that only men should be covering it, but it's really changing. There's a lot more women being hired now, and like I said earlier, you just have to really be educated and present yourself well, and people will respect you. That's the biggest thing. And I don't treat the guys I work with like they're guys. I just treat them like they're my friends. I don't expect them to treat me differently because I'm a girl, and I don't treat them differently because they're a man. And if you just treat yourself with respect, you'll get it back.
Can you make a prediction for the two teams that will be in the Super Bowl?
The Super Bowl? Well, the Patriots are going to be in the Super Bowl, obviously, which is annoying. But I don't know. The NFC is really crazy right now. I'm not really sure on that end because the Seahawks are not as good as I thought they were. But yeah, I would say the Patriots are going to be there again.
Did you ever get the chance to tackle your brother?
No, and I would fail. He's getting older now, but he still takes care of himself, so I would not. My younger brother actually played football in college too. When he was little, we would fight a lot, and I would win because he was like scrawny. But now he's like 6'4", 240. So I'm not tackling any of my brothers.
Is it harder being unbiased in your career?
Is it hard being unbiased? Yes, it's very difficult, especially when you're covering local sports and local teams. Everyone has biases in this industry. It's very difficult to find someone who doesn't. Even some of the greats like John Clayton, for example, who, knows more about the NFL than I will ever learn in my life. He's from Pittsburgh, so he likes the Steelers. He lives in Seattle, so he's kind of inclined to follow them. So everyone has biases. It's just a matter of, if your reputation needs to be someone who is unbiased. If you're a national reporter, it's kind of important that you attempt to be unbiased. But, for me, I love the Heat, I love the Dolphins. I watch the Marlins and the Panthers. I can be unbiased because I'm covering sports here. If I move to a national platform, people would know I'm inclined to, cheer for or, give those teams the benefit of the doubt. It's just, you just have to really worry about your reputation in those situations.
Where do you see women in this industry?
I'm sorry?
Where do you see women in this industry?
Women?
Yeah.
I think that there's still a little ways to go. They're getting more jobs, and that's important, but there's still sort of this idea that they can only be the sidekick, or they can only be the host, or they can only be the reporter. Someone like Doris Burke has done an amazing job at integrating herself. She's a basketball reporter, and she's been around basketball forever. And she's now calling games, and she's working as an analyst as opposed to just a host. So that's the difference, that women have to start moving out of those traditional female roles of just the host, or just the setup person, or just the sideline reporter, which there's nothing wrong with being a sideline reporter. But if your ultimate goal is not to do that, then you have to position yourself to not be that for your entire career and get pigeonholed into that role. So eventually I think it will change, but it's going to take women being more forceful about it to get there.
This year we saw two major, paradigm shifts within the industry, with a woman, female, being hired as a coach in the NFL and referee. What do you feel, does it stop there, or do you think at some point, there might be an opening for a woman to be a head coach in a male sport?
I want to say yes, but I don't know how that would really be possible in most of the sports. In basketball, I certainly do think that that's possible, and that will happen more quickly than in baseball or football. Hockey, possibly, but I mean, football, there's no direct line for women to go from playing to coaching. And with baseball, it's, you get to a point you can play baseball as a young girl, and then eventually you're going to get pushed into softball, which is different. So for that reason, not that you have to play in order to coach, but I think if you're a woman, they want you to have that extra knowledge in order to prove yourself. So I think it will be very difficult with football, and especially with the environment in the locker rooms. Even though it's changed a lot, it's still a football locker room, and I don't know how that would work. Referees, obviously, I don't see why that wouldn't be possible. You don't have to have played to be a referee. But I think basketball, you'll see it soon, because it makes sense. I mean, there's so many men coaching women's basketball, and it's the same sport. You're playing the same sport, so that's what's important.
A couple more questions, guys.
So real quick, in your field of business, like you're being, not use the word afraid, but something that you want to say on the radio, but you really can't. Have you ever had that spur of the moment where I gotta be careful what I say, if not, this might happen?
Sure. Yeah, it happens a lot, because you're talking for 4 hours straight. And inevitably, every day, I'm going to mispronounce something. My co-host is going to say a stat that's not 100% right, because you're talking for 4 hours. And even though we have a computer in front of us and we can do research in the show if we need to or whatever, there's just going to come a point where you're just wrong about something. And I mean, that's one area of it. Another time is, you're trying to be entertaining, and sometimes you get into a conversation and you get excited and you're arguing, and you don't want to slip up and say a bad word or something like that. So you have to be careful. You just have to always remember that you're on air. And then obviously, there's situations like you just want to be a little political. You want the idea that you don't really need to maintain a relationship with a team or a particular player or something like that, and you should be unbiased and just say what you want. But it's like I said, it's all about relationships in this business. So when I might want to say something bad about the Dolphins situation or something, and I won't go to the extreme that I might when I'm not on air, because you don't want to put yourself in a bad situation. Other people have differences of opinion about that. They don't feel like they should have to do that. But I think long term it puts you in a better position to keep yourself under control. But when you're a talk show host, you're talking, so it definitely happens.
What time do you get up to go to work?
I get up at 4:30. It's not so bad. I'm done working at 9:15 most days, so my whole day is really done outside of watching SportsCenter and checking my phone to see any updates or anything like that. But I'm done working at 9:15, so I'll go home and take a nap.
More questions?
While you were growing up, did you have a role model, and how have they affected your life?
I worshipped Michael Jordan. He was the best thing ever. And I actually got to meet him on my 21st birthday, and that was one of those times that I was really, really starstruck. But Michael Jordan was the best ever, and I would watch all of his basketball games, and I would record them on a tape, which you guys probably have never even touched, and rewatched them, even though I knew how the game ended. And I always wanted to be him, and I'd always, find a way to get the new shoe, which now is just out of control, but back then was like a really, really big deal. So yeah, Michael Jordan was my role model growing up.
What is one thing that you can't go on there without?
That I can't go on air without? I really need coffee in the morning. Coffee is important. At 4:30 in the morning, coffee is pretty important. I usually drink 2 cups of coffee during the show, like throughout the show.
Very black.
Black? I can't do it. Plus, I used to bring coffee with me to work. My fiance would be really nice and get up and make me a cup, like a pot of coffee. He doesn't do that anymore because now he's over it. But the coffee at work is not great, so I can't do it black. It's not great.
How has your life changed by taking this career, by taking this change in your life? How has it changed?
It's changed in the way that I'm a public figure now, so I have a bit of responsibility that I didn't necessarily have before. So growing up or in college, people know you, your friends know you, the people that you go to school know you, people in your neighborhood or in your city. But it's different when people are watching everything that you do. And especially with social media, thank God social media did not exist when I was in college. I mean, Facebook came out my freshman year of college was the first year that Facebook ever existed. And not only, you could only be on Facebook if you were in college, so it wasn't something that everyone everywhere used, and there was like MySpace was a big deal and stuff, but it wasn't like it is now where everybody posts everything that they're doing at every second, and you have Snapchat, and you have Twitter, and you have Instagram, and and being on air too, everybody is watching you, and that's a big change. It's something that you have to think about when you get on air, or even when you're not on air, even if you're just a writer or you're a producer, anything that you're involved in, employers, they check that stuff. They go on Facebook and they check and see, what you're tweeting about. And so I never use like bad language on any social media. And, you have to really be careful about posting, where you are, and, it can really get you in a lot of trouble. And more than getting you in trouble, it's your brand. It's who you are, and it's how you represent yourself. So who you're with and what you're doing is all documented now. Even if you don't post anything, your friends may post that you're somewhere or you're doing something, and that can get you in a lot of trouble. So being in a public figure has changed my life a lot, and that's the biggest adjustment, is to making sure that you control what people know about you and all of that.
Ms. Taylor, thank you so much
Okay.
for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.